So most of the time I do like an ad read-in, like this episode is brought to you by whatever and whoever. But since you're sitting right here, we can just do the ad read-in right now. So this episode will be brought to you by 30 Seconds Out. And what's the code going to be? Say cleared hot.
That's what it is.
There you go.
It's cleared hot.
And it'll be good for, let's call it, what, 10% off?
Let's do 20.
20% one-time use?
Yeah, one time per customer.
Okay, one time per customer. Does it matter if it's uppercase or lowercase?
Nope.
Okay.
All lowercase.
So 30 seconds out. Actually, you know what? You explain 30 seconds out. Do your goddamn ad. Earn your keep.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, 30 Seconds Out, we're basically just military pop art and kind of just taking the funny ideas and experiences of being in the military and doing commando shit and putting it on tees in sort of like sort of a funny way where, to the point where a lot of people, they look at it and they're like, I don't get it. And I'm like, that's fine, just move along. But
wasn't that kind of what you were shooting for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you're making stuff, I think if you're making stuff for everybody, and everybody gets it, then you're like, you really don't have a niche. Like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
What are you putting out there? So.
All right. So where can they find you?
Go to 30secondsout.com.
It's spelled out though, correct?
Yeah,
it's not 30.
Yeah, I spell it out. THIRTY 30 seconds out. Or you can do 30 SECOUT. But if you just type it in 30 seconds out, it'll pop up on Google.
Cleared Hot's a code, 20% off, one-time use. That's it. All right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the ad read. It's done.
Boom.
Brought to you by 30 Seconds Out.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
As for the podcast, I was thinking about this. I don't know where to start. Because honestly, we have more things that we could talk about than I have room on this SIM card.
Right.
Where should we begin? I'm going to let you choose.
I say we just come out of the gates and talk about the night you got hit.
All right. Well, the last episode with Evan, we came out of the gates hot, too, because he was talking about Spartans and their leisure time activity with each other, clothing optional. Right out of the gate, 30 seconds in, he was just hammering away at the Spartan culture. I'm like, and then a minute and a half in, he goes, "Can you say this on the podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, it's the internet. Just fire away." All right, cool. So we'll start with one of the worst days of my life. That's awesome. I'm gonna
Wait, you had a worse day than that? I could see possibly, but
well, I don't believe in absolutes, so I try to say not use the terms always and never. So I'll say that was the second worst night, just because it leaves room that there could have been a worse night. Like
right.
Ed Herzog is the second funniest person I know, because I've never met everybody. So he's right up there, and there might be somebody out there who's funnier than Ed. Yeah, I don't think so, but I put him at number 2. So I'll let you can fire it off.
Yeah, so I was a new guy.
You have to start the story right, though.
What?
So no shit, there we were.
No, yeah, like that deployment. That was my second deployment, and the first deployment was it wasn't as sporty as this one was going, and I was like the new guy in the team, and I was actually really stoked that I got to go on to be in your guys' team.
I was too. I wasn't supposed to be, because I wasn't, and so actually, I never use names of guys unless I get their express permission before. So totally. First names would probably be okay, but I wasn't in Jody's team, so I was lucky to go as well too, because they kind of did a little bit of a draft. Yeah, which was good.
Well, I ended up there because of I ended up in Jody's team, I think, because I had gotten into a fight right when I got to the command.
I remember at Shaw's.
Do you remember that night?
I wasn't out that night, but I remember you telling the story of cutting your way through like a Bisqueen barrier, like you small portions of E&E with some hand-to-hand combat skill
in Memphis.
Yes.
Yeah. So I got pulled in. I got. That's how I got picked for the team. I think No, I don't think I know. So one guy goes, "I want the dude who's with the black eye who just got in the fight." And I'd only been in the team for a week and a half.
Yeah, that was your first trip, wasn't it?
I was in handcuffs a week and a half, and I'm like, "That's it. That's the end of."
It was a good run, though.
There it goes. The week
Solid
and a half
9 days.
Of glory. It's fucking terrible.
So you went through selection in 03.
Mm-hmm.
What team did you come from before that?
2.
That's right. You were an East Coast guy.
Yeah, but I started out at SCV1 in Hawaii.
What class were you?
At 193.
I thought. Well, okay. All right. So my brain's scrambled then. I thought you were in the mid 200s.
No, yeah, I was in 193. I'm actually gonna make it to we're gonna probably hit 393. Yeah, I'll be around. I'll go to Coronado for that class graduation.
Your 200 class. Yeah.
Yeah, 200 classes later.
All right. So since we're already completely off track of that night, anyway. All right. So okay, but that's good. So I would have thought we. So what year did you join? You must have joined 93?
93. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 93.
Interesting.
Right out of high school.
Where'd you grow up?
I was an Army brat, so I moved all over. I actually lived in Hawaii a lot for like a long time, for 8 years when I was a kid, from when I was like 2 to when I was 10-ish.
Okay, so SDV1 was like going back home.
Yeah, in a way. I didn't really want to go to Hawaii, but because I already kind of lived there and I wanted to go to the East Coast, but I didn't have a choice.
Oh, what'd you put on your dream sheet?
248.
I did too, and I got 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized it's not really a dream sheet. It's just to waste your time putting something on a piece of paper.
Yeah, totally.
And then I think they threw darts, and it's like 5, 7. There was no rhyme or reason to it whatsoever.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you were an Army brat. What did your parents think about the Navy choice?
No, they didn't care. They were just glad I had some direction.
They didn't want to talk into like Greenie Beanie or Ranger.
Well, I mean, in high school, like I was, I did like they had this, that Scared Straight program where they would like get kids that were having problems and they would take them to a prison, and the prisoners were like,
"I will rape you."
They will yell at them, and then you leave scared, and then you fix your life. Like I did that in high school, so I was a part of that group.
Yep.
And so I think my parents were a little concerned about what the hell I was going to do, but
Okay.
I kind of knew what I was going to do. I was going to go either graduate high school, move to Jackson Hole, and start skiing and snowboarding, or I was going to try for the SEAL teams. I didn't know what I was. So I was like,
relatively the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Really close.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Wow. And so you came in, Buds, SDV to Team 2, Team 2 to selection, and that's where we because I think the first time I ever met you was probably at that trip at Mid-South.
Yeah.
We rolled out in the morning, full on shiner. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah. And that was from a cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't from anybody hitting me. It was when I got tackled by the cops and cuffed, and the dude hit me like a linebacker. I was running from one of the bouncers around the corner.
So hold on, just tell the goddamn story. Since this one sounds good too, we'll get to the other one later. Tell the whole story.
So you're a new guy. You show up, and this is our first trip, and they're we're out drinking in Memphis, and we're at Beale Street or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some scuffle with some of our guys and some people there, and so
It definitely wasn't started by our guys though.
yeah. Oh no. They knocked our halos off, and then we got mad.
Yeah. You guys were at the bar just reading the Bible, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure.
And so I get grabbed by one of the senior guys. He's like, "Hey, E-Man, come with me." I'm like, "Okay." You're a new guy. You just go along, right? And then so he's like, we got to go find this guy or whatever. That's he punched one of our dudes or something. I'm like, I don't know what happened. I'm like, okay. So we get down there. So we find the guy in a bar. He's sitting there, and we're kind of waiting. And so
Kind of waiting, as in
we're like
setting up an ambush.
Well, yeah, a little bit. So so the dude's in there. He's having his drinks. We're having drinks in the corner, and I'm just waiting to see what happens. We're like, we're just gonna wait till he goes outside. Then we're gonna confront him about what happened earlier and get some answers or whatever. And so a while goes on, and we're there for like an hour or something, and everyone gets tired of waiting. They're like, we're over it. We're leaving. So, but I stayed, and so I stayed there. And then the dude goes in the bathroom. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna follow this guy in the bathroom. So I go in the bathroom, and no one followed me in there because I don't think they thought I was serious. And so I go in the bathroom, and the guy was taking a leak, and I'm like, well, I don't want to punch this guy while he's taking a leak. I got to at least give him like a man-on-man.
Yeah.
You see me, I see you. I'm not going to sucker punch anybody just because I don't believe in that. So the guy comes out, he looks at me, and then we started fighting. At this point, we're all super drunk.
Yeah.
And so this other dude in the bathroom jumps on me and grabs me.
A random third party?
Yeah, just a random dude grabs me. I'm on the floor in the bathroom, and I'm thinking at this point, like, I got to get out of here because the cops are coming. Right?
Yeah.
I know the cops are coming. And so I get up, break out of that dude's, just grapple my way out of his grips. In my drunken stupor, I run out, and I see the bouncers, like the big bouncers, heading, and this dude would have bent me in half. running towards me, and that's when I saw like the plastic they had, right? And so I just kind of like weaseled my way. I don't know if I tore it or whatever. This is such an asshole story. Get out of the plastic, and I'm not in good shoes to be running. I'm in like not mountaineering boots, but I'm in these thick winter boots, and I start running, and I'm like, oh no, this is gonna be
like
hard.
cinder blocks on your feet.
Yeah, I'm like clunk, 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 and so I start running. Bouncers are behind me. There's like 2 or 3 bouncers behind me. So I'm running out, run behind the bar, come back on the street to double back. So I'm kind of like circling, looking for anyone I know. Like I'm looking for the other dudes. Like, where'd you guys go? And I'm coming back. Right as I'm coming back into Beale Street, this cop, he hits me like Terry Tate office linebacker.
Yeah.
He just clocks me and just grabs my arms, and I'm just like airborne, and my face just smashes into the cobblestones, and that's where the black eye came from.
Nice.
And dude cuffs me, and then I see the other guy who we were fighting, right? The guy I just fought, and so they're like, hey, do you want to press charges? So I'm like, no, absolutely not. They're like, well, he doesn't want to press charges either, so you guys just you go home now. You know, like don't.
Your evening's over, sir.
Yeah, you're done here.
Yeah.
So I took that. I got uncuffed, and I was super lucky, because if I had gone to jail, if they would have brought me in, I would have been done. I would have been kicked out for sure.
No, they would have given you options, like chicken or steak, window or aisle. Like, which one do you want on your way out of here?
Right.
You would have had choices.
Yeah, totally.
They would have all terminated and the eject button, though, for sure. Yeah, that's. I actually remember. Yeah, that Shiner. We were waking up to train at many trips at Mid-South. I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah. Okay, fast forward 2005, February 5th.
Yeah. So I end up. I get pulled onto the team with you guys, and they're like, hey, yeah, we're gonna go to Iraq, and so I was super stoked, obviously. Like, I mean, I'm sure you were too. Like,
yeah.
We were like, yeah, we're stoked, and it was a good time to go, because it was.
Well, it was just slow where we were going to go, or slower because it was still the tail end of the winter time. It would have been slow.
And it was like, because in 2003 when Iraq first went down, it got pretty benign after the initial invasion in 2003. Like, guys were hopping in cars and going to get shawarmas in town, like no big deal, just carrying pistols, like.
Well, Afghanistan was the same way, right? 2001, like there was that first like I remember my first time in Afghanistan in 2002, and we went from Bagram to where did we go? We were augmenting the security detail. And we drove to the Yellow House, which is what they call it in a Humvee, right. And then we would cruise around in like thin-skinned vehicles, like the exact opposite of what you would do 5 years after that.
Yeah, totally.
Because I think everybody backpedaled. They're like, whoa, what's going? Because they were getting crushed, mostly because we were about 8 centuries ahead, technology-wise and tactic-wise.
Yeah.
But they backpedaled out of it, and then they slowly started creeping their way back in, which is I think what happened in Iraq too.
Yeah.
Because they just threw their hands up, like, hey, we're good here, figured out what was going on, and then the insurgency, like. Drastically different. The tactics we were using in 2003 for that initial surge or the initial invasion versus even in 2005 were substantially different.
Oh, totally. And what happened there too is they basically created a ton of unemployed fighting age males in Iraq, because if you were on the side that we didn't like, you were fired. So all of a sudden, no income, and now you've got, I don't know, a couple million fighting age males in the streets with nothing to do and no job, and they've been ostracized from the new system, and so they're like, oh, let's form. What are men going to do? They're going to form groups. They're going to form tribes, gangs, and some of them are going to be looking for money, and they're just like the guys we go after. They weren't like religious fanatics. They were just thugs. They were there to get cars and rob people and get control and try to gain control of a region or a town, and then there were the religious fanatic guys, but that left that vacuum. Those guys had nothing to do, and that's part of one of the takeaways that from the studies in Iraq is that was a major screw up that we did. We didn't give those people anything to do when they could have been a value add in some aspect.
I think looking back, the U.S. military, and I'm sure you would agree, doing what we did, we're very good at going in and breaking things. Not that that's necessarily our job, but the building and what happens in that vacuum, the U.S. military is not equipped to do that. So
right.
I don't know. I mean, for myself personally, I think back about Afghanistan and Iraq, and I view it from the perspective of like my youngest daughter who's 10. It's like, I wonder when you're in college how this is going to be talked about.
Yeah, totally.
Success or failure or victory or... I mean, we tactically, we would win, right? But strategically, I don't know. I think the jury is still out on that one. And well, in the fact, actually, I don't think the jury is out. The fact that we're still in both of those countries, I mean, we're the 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. And I mean, an occupying force is not sustainable.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to be able to sit there forever because we'll just drain our resources. We just keep getting drained.
Yeah, and when people say, how long should we be there? I'm like, well, we still have forces in Korea and Germany
Right.
and all over the NATO countries in Europe, so it's going to be a piece. Like, pack a lunch if you actually want it to be stabilized in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So, again, February 5th, back. This is why it's perfect. It just goes on tangents.
Is that what the date was? February 5th?
February 5th, yeah. I remember it. I'm not surprised that you don't. It was kind of seared into my head a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so like with we've been doing some good raids at that point, and I'd never pulled the trigger on anyone until that night you got hit, but I remember when we started that out that night, we were out, and it wasn't very far from where we were at in Baghdad. Like, it was.
Yeah, because we took the Panders.
Yeah. We rolled it. We gaffed it. Vehicles basically
Through the burning shit piles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Remember, like, we just driving over the medians and everything, and it was pretty anarchy-ish.
Well, in a Pander, there are no rules.
Right.
So when you have mounted machine guns, you can go over the median, and people will get out of your way. And nobody's driving in downtown Iraq or downtown Baghdad in the middle of the night.
And having this was probably the most. It was up to that point, and even I would still put it at the top of one of the most confusing layouts of living area that I've been to. Because remember how confusing it was. There was no pattern. There was no.
You talking about that particular house?
No, I'm talking about like that neighborhood that we went into when we were trying to find those dudes.
Well, because we walked past the house.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, I remember I was up front walking in front of Jody, and we were kind of split, and that dude ran across the alley. Because I remember going past that house, and there were no goddamn lights on.
Right.
And we went, and I don't remember, we chased a guy in, we made entry. I remember a shotgun going off somewhere, which is going to wake up everybody.
Yeah.
Coming back down that alley, ladder goes up. The widget dude was doing the widget stuff. And
it was a low wall, too. It was probably, a 7-foot wall? It wasn't very high.
Low wall in comparison to most of the walls there, yeah. Yeah, I was on like the second rung of the ladder, staring at that window for like the 10 minutes, just looking at it. Never saw a shadow, never saw anything move, nothing. And then widget guy was like, "This is it." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah. And then you went over, but at that point, we were like, you went over the wall first.
Correct.
Right? It was you, and then I think I was second, and then I think Scoop was behind us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I think there were only 3 of us in the courtyard when it kicked off.
Yeah. And then I remember because I remember that light was on, right?
In that room, yeah.
And then you could see the dudes in the room, and the TV was on.
I never saw that.
Oh, you didn't?
Because I knew. So remember the layout of the house where, there's the door, the window, and like kind of like a classic American house where it had that part that jutted out where the garage would be.
Yeah.
There was that blacked out window there. I'm like, okay, listen. I knew I was going to hold security for you to place the breach, but I'm not going to turn my back on that.
Right.
Dark. So I was actually looking in that. Like, as soon as I shifted my head to look in that darked out window, shit got a little wild.
Because so when we first hopped over the wall, I just rewind like a couple moments. Because when we first got in there, we were lit up, but there was like all that junk in the yard.
Yeah.
So we were kind of hiding behind.
There was some good shadows.
That low crap. And then I think I made eye contact with you, and we were looking, and we saw that shadow line, basically where that corner was by the carport, and we're like, dude, let's go to the shadow. Like, this is not a good spot. Because I remember seeing the guys' heads in there, and I remember there were multiple dudes, and I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of dudes in there.
Yep.
And so is when we got up to move to go to the shadow.
Right when I got to the corner.
That's when he opened up.
Yeah.
And all I saw was just the flash. Because I was looking at the window and I just saw the flashing like in slow motion, just juk.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure I was going to get hit.
How far away would you say it was?
20, no more than 25 feet.
Yeah, it was close.
Not meters, feet. It was really close. Like you could smell his gun. Like you could smell it when it went off. And you were to my left.
Yep.
And Scoop was over to my right. And I remember you disappearing out of the corner of my eye, like you were gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, because I was kind of keeping tabs a little bit. You were kind of we're making sure where each other are at. And then you were gone, and then we didn't know at the time, but Scoop had been shot through the hand, and it stopped in this plate. But dude, he was a beast. He didn't say anything about it until the very end. And he's like, "Hey, I think I gotta talk to somebody." And he didn't
Hand shots don't count.
Yeah. I'm like, he's like, "I'm not really shot. I just got like it's just through my hand." I'm like, "You were fully shot, dude." Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta go. But yeah, so you disappeared, and then Scoop dumped his mag, and then I got to the corner, and then the dude was like looking out the window like that guy was fully engaged.
Yeah.
And,
Which he was not. So I never saw him.
okay.
I heard. So the only time I've ever had that sensation of time truly slowing is I heard the round, the first one, and it hit me high up on my leg, right? Just barely missed my femur. And I remember my first reaction, I remember my hand like swinging down to grab it, because I'm sure we'll talk about my love of direct pressure. So I remember my hand swinging down to grab it, but before my hand hit it, so my entire leg felt like a funny bone strike. And then I couldn't move it. So before my hand touched the side of my leg, I was like, okay, cool, I'm dead in 5 minutes, because it's just powdered my leg. I'm going to bleed out inside of my quad.
Femoral out.
Totally. So it hit that, and as I was falling, I could just hear doosh, doosh. And as I got into the car, time sped back up. It was like boom, boom, bump, up, up, up. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But I held direct pressure the entire time. It was good.
You did. That's excellent.
It was excellent work. It's priority. And people listening to this can be like, what are you talking about? We'll get to that phase of the story in a minute.
Oh, dude. And so we get Scoop's out. He's changing a mag. So I get up to the corner. So I got a spot, and now so I had a good corner, a good cover,
Yeah.
But that light was the killer, man.
Yep.
We were so lit up, and then. So I would lean out, pump 5 or 6 rounds into there, and the guy would duck. And we did this whole it was like on a TV show, trading fire. Like I would go do 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 do, and then he would shoot back, and it was like rounds were skipping off the corner.
Yeah.
And then I would lean out, and then pop pop pop, and then he would shoot back, and then I go, oh, I'm gonna juke him. So I go boom, I lean out like I'm gonna shoot, and then I roll back, and I don't do anything. And then I'm looking, and I could see he was looking, wondering why I didn't shoot, and I'm like, I got him, and that's what I just filled him up.
Yep.
And then someone else in the room started screaming. I don't know if it was his friend, but it wasn't him. He died.
Yeah.
And then there was just some wailing in the room. Like I think it was like his, I don't know, buddy or something.
Well, at that point, too, guys back over the wall that we had climbed over, they were engaging too as well. So I don't think you were the only one. I mean, like, who knows? Who else could have gotten a piece?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And then you're like, dude, get me out of here.
I was stuck under a car, dude.
And I thought, like, and here's the old tactic, right? You're like, we got to win the fight first before we're going to expose ourselves.
Yeah.
And I looked at where you were, because I saw you under the car. And the first thing I thought is, like, why is he under the car? Like, how did you crawl under there?
No, so when it hit me, I'll send you a picture of the belt. So the second round he shot at me burned my belt for about 4 inches.
Right.
And the copper jacket is still attached to the belt. So because it hit me in the side and spun me towards him. And I pushed off with my good foot, my right one, which is what sent me flying towards the car. So I hit on my back and slid underneath it. Like somehow my gun was under me, because maybe I thought 2 hands direct pressure, so I probably just threw my gun down and was grabbing for it. But I'm hung up underneath the undercarriage of the car on my shotgun bungee. Like, and then my gun's underneath me, and I'm like trying to push out to get out from underneath the car.
Right.
And all I see is from the window just doosh, doosh, doosh. And I couldn't get out. That's why I'm like, dude, get me out of here.
Yeah, so like we wanted to get you out, right? Obviously get a medic, but the medic didn't want to. They made a good call. The medic didn't run in because he didn't have a good visibility on what was going on in there.
Yeah.
And it was smart of him not to just blindly charge into a compound. And he didn't even know where you were, so he'd be running in there like literally looking for you.
Yeah.
Right. So it was a good call him not running in there. Plus rounds were still going back and forth, and there was other guys in the room armed, and I looked at where you were, and my thought process at the time was like, okay, I say he's relatively safe because you were under the car, like you were out of sight, like you were out of the.
It was like just my lower torso just hanging out.
Yeah, you were like out of the picture. And so I'm like, first we gotta take care of these guys.
Negative, dude, get me out of there. If I get hurt, the priorities shift. It's get Andy out, win the firefight.
And then I'm trying to remember. Sometimes the order of things sometimes get mixed up a little bit in your head. You know what I mean?
That's why I wanted you to tell from your perspective, because mine could be flawed as well.
So then once I think we had we had those guys basically subdued.
Yeah.
Before we went in, and that's when I just ran over to you, and then we had more guys came in the compound at that point, so we had more guns like providing security. So it was a good time because we had cover at that point and more manpower. So that's when I came over with my scissors to look at your leg.
After you drug me out, yeah.
And then I pulled you out a little bit so I could, because I couldn't deal with you under the car. It was like you were like.
I couldn't get out, dude. Like worst, scariest environment imaginable. Your gun's underneath you, you're pinned, and you're just staring at muzzle flash. Like,
and you're shot.
Yeah, it's like I really hope this guy doesn't get lucky and like go up down a little bit because that's the only thing that was saving me was pure luck.
Yeah. No, well, that and us filling that room with bullets.
True.
They weren't happy about that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I support that.
So yeah, I remember just trying to like, where is it? Where you hit, and you were holding it.
Yep.
And then and it was your left side, right?
Yep.
Your left leg, yeah. And then I just took the scissors and cut it, and you're like, how's it look? And I remember going, okay, I'm gonna have to tell him one thing and then the medic the other thing, but I wasn't smart enough at the moment to figure out that you were gonna hear what I said to the medic on the outside.
Because you were literally yelling.
Yeah, he's like, how is it? How's it look? And I go, and you're like, dude, how is it? I'm like, dude, you're fine. It's like, it's not that bad. I'm like, and then I go, and I remember exactly what I said. I go, he's got a lot of holes in his leg. And you were like, what? And you were like,
because I didn't want to look at it because I'm like, so I was holding, because I remember you pulling out your trauma shears. You're like, dude, move your hand so I can cut your pants. I'm like, no, Evan, fucking direct pressure.
Because I was worried. As soon as you said leg, I was thinking in my head, like, oh, I need a femoral. Like,
that's what I thought too.
For a bleeder, right?
But it was so high up, we couldn't put a tourniquet on it anyway.
Yeah. How high up was it? Like below, like your hip. Let's say your hip socket, like your
It is
bone on the side of your hip.
Completely parallel with the socket.
Okay. Wow.
So yeah,
really high.
There's no way you could have put a tourniquet on it. It would have.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you could have put a tourniquet on like my belly button.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't work.
Yeah, that's right. It was pretty high.
Yeah.
And then I remember walking around. I remember because we had walked around so much in this neighborhood and just the open sewers. And I'm like, I do not want to drag his leg through any of this. And then I'm thinking like he's gonna get like a major infection and die or something if I drag him through this disgusting water that's out here. And then that's when I go to try to put you on my shoulder, and you're like, no, just drag me. And that was like, yeah, that's actually smarter, but we'll deal with the infection later or whatever. And that's when someone else came up. And we did the typical like grab
two-handle strap. Yep.
Two-handle strap. Grab that. And we just drug you back around the corner, and then. Went back inside and breached the door, went inside and
so I was laying
talked to those guys.
Yeah, laying outside of the compound listening to all that happen as the 18 Delta rolled up. He's like, all right, cool. And he wraps some Curlex around it. He's like, you're good. And in my head, I'm like, what's going on? Like, this doesn't feel like I'm good. You just put Curlex on there, which is essentially spongy cloth.
Right.
And you're telling me I'm good? Like, okay. Does anybody have a morphine popsicle? Like,
yeah, I need more. Yeah, I need more than this. Yeah.
Well, I had the morphine in my shoulder pocket.
You had a fentanyl, right?
No.
Was it a fentanyl lollipop?
No, that was pre-fentanyl. I wish they would have taped that to my hand.
Okay.
But we had the auto injectors.
Oh, okay, that's right.
But I had never had any. I thought if I did that, I was going to be drooling on myself.
Right.
Because I had to make sure, like the 18 Delta, I'm like, give me my rifle. I'm like laying in the street essentially, but like at least let me have my gun, so I feel happy.
Yeah, because you're still kind of out there. I mean, still like it's the target's still going on.
So all the target happened, and then it went the way that it went. Other guys were getting medevaced in helicopters, and Scoop and I got put into that Bradley, where the greenest of green medics, he was visibly shaking.
Was he shaking?
Oh,
I remember you mentioning that like a couple years ago that like his hands were just shaking.
He was shaking, and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna give you an IV." I'm like, cool. I give him my arm. He whips out a 14 gauge. I'm like, listen, I'm not cool with this. That's the size of a straw for a Coke can.
Right.
I'm not happy with this, but like, go ahead. He jabs. I'm like, God damn it. Gets it though, and goes, I don't have a bag prepped, and pulls it out. I'm like, you're done for the night. You're done. Yeah. I just bent my arm. Like there is no one next. I'm like, you can ride with us, but don't touch me again.
Oh, he was cruxing.
He was
gripped,
amped out of his mind.
He was gripped.
Because I mean. Well, Scoop and I I can't imagine what we looked like. Like, we hadn't cut our hair in 2 years.
Okay, well, let's do another side tangent. So Scoop, So we finish the whole target, right? We get target secure, like everything's calmed down, and that's when he comes up and he says something to like us. He's like, "Hey, I don't think he really knew what to describe. He's like, "Hey, I think I took like a little something or like
a bee stung me."
Yeah, he didn't really know.
Yeah,
and we like looked at his hand, and he had been shot right through the hand, and where it stopped in his plate was I remember afterwards when. Because we kept his kit because he didn't medevac him with his kit, and we took it back to base and we looked at it, and the round stopped. It was about 1 inch from the bottom of his plate.
It went through a mag too, right, or both? Because I think he was double stacked.
It might have.
Yeah, I think it went through 2 of his M4 mags.
And it was pretty close call. But he was like, one of those things like adrenaline carried him through. He had to have known he was hit, I think, through the hand. But he might not have because it was pretty rowdy, and I think when everything calmed down, his adrenaline came down, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm shot through the hand," and this was a while afterwards, but he didn't want to go. He's like, "No, I think it'll be good. We can just like because he wanted to stay. Like who doesn't want to stay, right? You don't want to get medevac if you don't have to. Like you want to hang out and keep operating, but." Yeah, so we basically made him get on the, go with you.
Yeah.
Get out of there. At least get looked at by the pros in bright light in a clean room.
Yeah. And then we were together for the next, 5 or 6 days, all the way through Germany, all the way getting back home, which was a bizarre experience in and of itself, man. Like
the medevac process.
Oh, man. Because it's funny, like, I got in that Pander. I didn't see any of you guys for months. Like I was just like it was over for me.
Yeah,
like lift.
Totally.
Because I'm gonna. And actually, I was curious. Did you guys just pack up all of our gear and put it on a rotator flight? Like, because eventually it got like I was curious what happened afterwards.
No, we packed our guys. We packed our stuff up because we had to make room because we needed a backfill. So we had 2 guys that were gonna fly over from somewhere else. I don't remember where they came from, but
probably OE.
Yeah, to come over to backfill you guys. So we basically had to clear your bunks out and get ready because I think it was only about a week delay until those guys got over there. Like the turnaround was pretty quick, so you guys got backfilled by 2, and so yeah, we packed our stuff up, and I don't remember if we shipped it early, but I think we just kept it with us because we're like, he's not going to need any of this stuff. I think we may have sent like your wallet and like maybe some like key things, but all your kit, all your major stuff stayed with us, and we're like, we'll just fly back with it. He's not going to be doing anything. He doesn't need this.
Yeah,
for a while.
I actually don't even remember when my kit got shed. I think I was still wearing it until we got to the hospital in the green zone, and then it was like the freaking trauma shears came out again. Like,
what was that like? Yeah, like what was that like for you? Like once you left us, like you got in the vehicle and
so I got in the Pander. We got to the green zone about the same time that the second round of helis were medevacing the guys out.
Okay.
So we all kind of got shuttled into, and I've had no morphine at this point. This is a couple hours because again, I thought if I had a jab myself, I'd have been like, I'm like just useless. So I'm just sitting there like, this sucks. And actually what hurt me the most was my ankle because the neuropathic pain from the doctors don't know if the round clipped my sciatic nerve or the ballistic gel where the shock waves.
Yeah.
Either way, if it was the shock waves or it actually penetrated the nerve, it had the same effect. It short-circuited the nerve all the way down to the terminus point in my ankle. So it felt like my ankle had been just completely hammered on with a sledgehammer. So we get into the waiting room, essentially, in the green zone. I'm in there, Scoop's in there, we're in our beds, and you look over and there's a dude handcuffed to his cot like 4 feet from us just looking at us, just wide-eyed.
Like a Iraqi dude? Or
like a Mooj.
Okay.
And somehow they had just wheeled us into the same room as him, and he's looking at us, and we're looking at him, and you see, like, the doc, he's like, we need to get that stretcher out of here.
Dude,
yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah, so that guy gets wheeled out. But then there was people, like the guy we were talking about last night, he went straight into surgery. Because, triage, right, taking the worst. Like, his portions of his upper body were toast. So he went straight into surgery. But as soon as we got in there and they started working on me, it was like I went from fully kitted out to butt naked in like 20 seconds. I'm like, what's going on? Like, everything is cut off. The guy finally is like, hey, do you want some morphine? I'm like, yes, absolutely. He juices me with it. I'm like, this is so weak. I wish I would have known. I would have taken this hours ago so I wouldn't have been in agony.
Right.
And then it was like CAT scans, and they started giving me options. They're like, X-ray, CAT scan, do you want us to try to get this metal out of your body? It looks like you have ferrous metal in your body, so we can't give you a MRI because the magnets would have pulled on it.
Exactly.
I said, in my morphine-induced state, I'm like, so what are my options? Like, if I leave it in, what's going to happen? And the doc said, well, it'll just encapsulate itself in calcium, and as long as the stuff doesn't move around and contact a bone, you're going to be okay. Or we could take it out. And I said, well, how would you take it out? He's like, oh, it's awesome that you asked. We'll knock you out, put a tube down your throat, intubate you, lay you on your stomach, and then we'll hold a two-dimensional x-ray, like basically over your ass cheek, and start slicing and peeling and slicing and peeling, trying to find the stuff. I'm like, I'll take option A, please. And so that was it. They're like, okay, there's nothing that we can do for you. So they put more Curlex on it and just kept giving me morphine because I still have never broken a bone. I've had stitches one time in my ear recently, but they never stitched it. They literally said, let it scab up, let the scab come off, and once the scab comes off, you can take a bath again. So that was it.
Did they let you sleep? Or did they keep you awake?
I could not sleep for about the first day and a half, just because, and at the same time, like then I had to notify Jamie. But the time I was in the...
Your wife.
Yeah, my wife. The time I was in the emergency room didn't match with the time in VB. It would have been like 2 a.m. I'm like, I'm obviously going to live. Let's not do a 02 call.
Yeah.
So we went into just a room at the hospital. And then the next day, they threw me on a stretcher with Scoop, and they threw us on a Black Hawk and flew us in the middle of the day to BIAP. And I waited there for a day where they would just freaking come over and just juice me with these amazing amounts of morphine. So I'd pass out for like 4 hours. I woke up one time, there was like 3 people standing at the foot of my bed, like talking about me, pointing at me. I was just like, ha, 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 right back to sleep. Then they put us on the airplane to Germany, which was a miserable experience. There were people on that airplane in agony the entire flight. And we had one JSOC doc between Scoop and I, and the guy we were talking about last night, like, do you need meds? Do you want an Ambien? Like, we had our own little pod, and then it was the entire length of the aircraft. 4 rows, the wall, 2 in the middle, and 1 on the other wall of people that were hurt. So
casualties.
Dude, the guy in the rack next to me was standing up in a turret of a Humvee when a dude clocked himself, and from everything from his belt line up was completely Swiss cheesed. And there was burn victims. There were multiple amputee, and they were like in agony, screaming, like, getting meds. So that was the entire. I looked over at the doc. I'm like, hey, can you put me out, please? I don't want to experience this.
Yeah.
Land in Germany. And it's like a 20-minute bus ride to the hospital. So I'm on a stretcher. I almost get dropped in the stretcher because now it's like a E4 Air Force poor little 22-year-old girl trying to carry me on a stretcher. So I almost go ass over tea kettle on the stretcher. I get put into a fucking white school bus on the Autobahn, and we're just sitting there just bouncing. And people who have like erector sets holding their bones together just like, ah.
Gosh. Brutal.
So they get us to Ramstein. They all get sent off to their wing. I look like I'm a hobo because I hadn't, cut my hair in years. Like, and they're like, so they put us in a different wing, and I ate Jell-O and watched shitty DVDs for like a day. Scoop and I checked ourselves out of the hospital, went to the airport, got a Delta ticket, flew back to the New York where Teeny Weenie met us, and landed at the command. Like,
what? Whoa, back up. Why did you guys go the civilian route? What?
Because it was a week until the next rotator.
Oh, so you were stuck there in Germany.
Correct.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Scoop was in the same room as us, but he spent most of the time at the bar because he was totally mobile. I'm like, right on, dude. Right. I'm sitting there.
He
like,
probably just had a big bandaged up mitt,
and he would just go put it on the bar and be like, cocktails.
Yeah, totally.
So his experience in Germany was different than mine. I'm just sitting there like I was able to take my first shower. Like I was able to talk to Jamie, talk to my parents. Like, yeah, it's not the best day of my life, but I'm gonna be okay. And then when they started like, hey, rotate will be here in a week. I'm like, that's not acceptable. How
did your wife find out?
I called
her. Command notify her, or so you were the first phone call she got?
Yes.
Okay.
So
how'd that go?
I was so high on morphine, I had to have somebody dial the phone for me because it was when they moved us to BIAP. Literally, like the syringe was this big, and the doc's like, "You in?" I'm like, "Yes, absolutely." Just
you in.
And then he hands me a cell phone. I'm like, I need you to dial this number because I can't I can't do it. And she answers, and I was like, hey, Jamie, how you doing? You know how I was supposed to be home in 2 months? I'm gonna be home probably in the next few days. I got shot last night, and I kid you not, she goes, like in the face?
What?
Swear to God. I'm like, no, I didn't get shot in the face. That was what she said to me, and I did a podcast episode with her, and she admitted it. She was like, yeah, I don't know, like. So she notified my parents, but I was able to first talk with her, which it was good. And I don't remember a lot of the conversation. We talked for about 5 minutes, and that was it. Like, hey, I'll see you in a few days.
Okay, so then you get home and you see her like.
She met me as the ramp was coming down, or not a ramp, the little stairs were coming down on one of the teeny weeny birds. She was sitting there, pregnant with our middle son, who's 13 now, with Riley, our oldest son, in a stroller. And it's like the most surreal, 48 to 72 hours before that, all this was happening. And like, I'm hobbling off a plane, like, and Winters was standing there. She hates him to this day because like, and I'm sure I'm messing this up because this is her story, not mine, but he had a Purple Heart in a box. He's like, here you go. Like, that's what he said to her, like a total douche canoe move.
Right.
No respect whatsoever. And she was just like, essentially, go fuck yourself. Like, she hates him to this day.
Right. Yeah.
And that was it. I mean, and then you guys came home months later. I mean, it was bizarre. And I was totally left on my own for rehab when I got back.
Well, because we didn't have the system that developed over the course
there
of
was
the next
nothing.
decade at the in the command. Like yeah.
It was bizarre.
So then, like you start rehabbing, and what are the docs telling you as far as like when am I going to start feeling my foot?
They said probably 2 to 3 years, if ever. I have never had more medical professionals tell me that I don't know, because I would say because it was neuropathic, right? And they honestly don't know that it grows back about 1 millimeter a day, or 1 inch a month. So it would have to grow back all the way down to that terminus point, the sciatic nerve in the ankle. So for about the first 4 months, I had foot drop. I couldn't articulate my foot at all. I could always plantar flex. I could always push my toe down, but I couldn't dorsiflex. I couldn't lift my toes up.
Okay.
And so they fitted me with like the plastic sleeve that goes underneath and it cups your foot and all that stuff. And I had some experimental like nerve tap stuff done on my spine to try to stop the pain. But the commands, I would go in and I would see Hutch, and he would put E-stem pads on for an hour and go, cool, we'll see you tomorrow. That was it. That was my rehab from the Navy. And the rest of it I was on my own, which is how I ended up meeting Dwight, because a buddy of mine recommended, hey, check this out. And it was like, I found Dwight, who was still associated with CrossFit at that time, started doing CrossFit as my own rehab, flew Dwight out to the command to do that seminar, and then took over my own rehab by just basically exercising is all I did.
That was the first seminar I did with Mark.
Yeah,
Dwight.
That was the first
When
time he had ever done one of those seminars at the command, which I think, like looking back, I think it did change a lot of the culture when it came to exercise.
Yeah.
The dudes who were soldiers in there, chest and tries, back and bis, and like Triple S and I are like pushing frickin', quads around and doing rope climbs and drags, and people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, what are you doing over there on that incline bench?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was good.
Because during that course, I think that was the first time that I had ever kind of almost hit the wall on an exercise machine.
I was going to say vomited while working out.
Yeah, I was like, it was the rower, and it was like, oh, we're going to row 500 meters as fast as you can. I'm like, 500 meters doesn't seem very far to me. Like, I'm like, okay. And now it's like everyone knows, everyone knows the 500-meter row now. But at the time, I'd never even heard of this. So
you row as hard as you can. It doesn't feel that bad. And 20 seconds later, you go, oh, no, what's happening?
Yeah,
and then
my lungs are shredded. Yeah.
Well, it catches up, and then that intense pain, and you basically fall out of the rower while you're still strapped in for about 2 minutes.
Dude, yeah, sidebar. So when Mark came to the command, when I heard that Mark was coming to the command, I was super stoked because, like, he was kind of like one of my heroes in high school.
Yeah. Just from the climbing world, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Like, I had pictures like from Rock and Ice and Climbing Magazine of like him free soloing ice walls in Chamonix. And for me, the way I was and the way I thought, and I'm still this way to a certain degree, but not so elitist mindset, I would say. But I was into that because I'm like, look what this guy's doing. He's 300 feet off the ground with no ropes climbing ice walls. And then I would go and I would like see like the football players at school and like the lacrosse players. I'm like, I'm like, this is boring. Like, there's no one's gonna die doing this. Like, so like I was definitely drawn mindset wise. I was drawn into whatever was, what could you die doing, and like a challenge surrounding that. So, like an activity with a lot of danger is what kind of drew me in, and so
I'd say you found it.
yeah. Yeah, and so like having Mark at the Twilight, like when he walked in, I was like, oh my God, Mark Twite's here, and I remember, I know that guy is.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and no, I don't think a whole lot of the people knew, just because I was a nichey little, sort of like a little climbing kid in high school.
Yeah. I think the longest episode of my podcast I've ever done was with him.
Oh, really?
Down in Salt Lake. Well, we could have filled up 3x more time because the guy is he's so deep into the things that he's interested in. People ask me about him all the time, like, what's Mark like? I'm like, he defines intensity in all of the best ways.
Yeah.
And if you don't define intensity in yourself in some of those ways, you and him might not get along very well.
Yeah.
Because, you know what I mean? He knows what he likes, and he goes down that path.
I mean, there's a reason he was like, you know, he's one of like the greatest American alpinists that's ever lived.
For sure.
Because the guy's intense, and he's you know, it's like other people, like you read any success books or like people that are like, hey, how do you do amazing things? Like, you kind of got to be obsessed. And people use that term in negatively, like, oh, he's obsessed.
Yeah.
Like it's a negative thing. Like, no, he's trying to do great things, or he's doing something really dangerous, and you need to be obsessed in order to have the drive to understand the details on how to stay alive while you do it.
Yeah.
And you need to have the practice to do it. And then you can't be half-assed about, oh, I'm like, you know, you're jumping wingsuits. It's not wingsuiting, I would say, isn't a great, you know, every other year type of activity.
Not over if you want to survive over a long term. No, yeah.
Yeah, you want to be immersed in it, and you want it to become like a part of you, and so like doing it all the time, you know, kind of thing. So like being obsessed, and you see people that have that, and you can recognize it pretty quickly. Like, oh, he's obsessed about this, which means he's probably good at it, which means if you want to learn about it, he might be the guy to go to.
Correct.
Yeah.
So in hindsight, looking at the story arc of your career, I would say, because people ask me all the time about military career, I'm like, it depends on your optic of the things that we did. I either had a very fortunate career or a very unfortunate career. Like, if you were looking to do the things that the SEAL community is designed around doing, we had an amazingly fortunate career.
Oh, yeah.
If you wanted to just have the job but not do those things, then it was unfortunate. So it all depends on what you're looking at. But I would say, the time that you served there hit it definitely in the sweet spot. So in 2005, I would say, or I can't say it for you, but would you say it was still just ramping up?
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, the intensity level and the op tempo was increasing.
Yeah.
In both theaters.
How would you describe, and I'll let you talk about it in whatever terms you're comfortable with, but everything that happened, because that was the last time you and I, other than yesterday, the last time we were on a heli together was in Iraq.
Yeah.
So
for all the listeners, we went heli skiing yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, boarding for some of us who.
Yeah, heli boarding. Me, you, Trevor Thompson from Thompson Parasports on IG, Nelson from up in Montana.
Yep.
I don't know if you can be on camera because you're kind of a secret dude.
It's not even his real name.
Well, good. No,
Yeah.
I'm none the wiser then. Oh, totally.
Yeah. How would you describe or talk about the rest of your career? Because you got out, what, 20? We got out 20. I got out 2013. You said your EAOS actually ended 2014.
Yeah, but I left the command in 2013 because you build up some leave and some terminal leave and the whole thing, and you squish it together and you leave early.
How were those 7 years after that night on target?
I would say I got to do like when you go into the military, you go like, I would really like to do this. You have this idea of what it's going to be like if you make it into the commando community. And when I say commando community, I don't mean just the Navy. I mean the Army, the Marines,
Special
Air
Operations
Force,
in general.
just Spec Ops, just command. I just call it commando stuff. But you have an idea of what you want to see and do as a commando, and pretty much I got to do everything and see everything that I ever wanted to. And the only thing I had left to do at the end of my 20 years was get shot, because I never actually got shot, got close a lot of times, or die. And I'm like I've pretty much done all this other stuff. I'm like, I don't really need to. It's like, do I need to keep pushing it and hang out? I don't know. But looking back on it, would I do it all over again? And it's not even a question. I would sign up immediately.
Yeah.
If I had to rewind time and go do my same exact path, I would do exactly what I did, because the 90s were tough. The 90s were mentally the hardest time in the military because there was nothing happening.
Alcohol consumption.
Well, yeah, just going on
all-time
trips
high.
Yeah, just like the training years in the 90s were just for me were really kind of a low point of where.
You know what though? It gives you good perspective. Like when I went in, so I left the command, I went and became a BUDS instructor. It's like my rehab, and I saw guys who were coming in to a community that was fully engaged in war. Which to me, the people who volunteer for that, like you get a tip of the hat more than a guy who just raises his hand and not that it's necessarily different, but at least that individual in wartime is like, I'm pretty sure I know what I'm signing up for. I know the consequences. I'm coming anyway. I joined in '96. It was like I like the concept of this job, right? But nothing.
Right.
So
right.
None is not like to make a value judgment on either one of them. But I would see those young kids coming in. I'm like, freaking right on. You know, they're like, you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
But without having the pre 9/11 understanding of what the teams were like, as the op tempo slowed, they had no context and perspective. Because if you serve pre 9/11 and you go through a peak period, right, and you roll over the other side of the bell curve,
Yeah, totally.
you're like, okay, I know what this is. I know what to expect. If you think you're coming in to play Call of Duty 24 hours a day and you don't get to do it, you're like, I'm out of here. And you're going to leave with a chip on your shoulder, which I've seen from a lot of the younger guys.
Yeah, totally.
Because they get in and they're like, all right, I'm ready. I'm American Sniper. What do you mean I'm going to the PI? What are you talking about? You know
yeah, totally.
Like, no, I'm out of here. Fuck you and fuck the teams, but it's also going to be the first bullet point on my resume. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it creates problems because they have a chip on their shoulder, and it only takes one bad experience for companies, and they're like, oh, no more SEALs.
Well, when I showed up, when I showed up to the squadron, and with you guys had just came off the invasion in '03, and like I had just missed it because I was going through training. I was going through selection.
Like I'll never be able to do those things.
Oh yeah, guys are like, it's never. They're like, you missed it. It was just the mantra was, you missed it. Well, and I was reeling. I was like, I can't believe I missed it again.
Yep.
I was like, this is.
Well, in the team room. In the gold team room before that, it was all these like models of like Bosnia targets, like pre 9/11, where they were doing like these. What were they? Who were they after? Like war crimes people, right?
Yeah, like war crimes dudes.
And then shortly after the invasion, they're like, we can take that off the wall. Like they just, you know what I mean? Because those guys thought that they had. Everybody else was like, oh, dude, we missed doing that. And then Iraq kicked off, and everybody's like, put these new trophies on the wall. And then people are like, oh, and then OEF got insane. They're like, take those trophies off the wall. You know what I mean? Like it's this cycle.
Right.
Never ending. What was highlight of your career? Anything stand out? Or not necessarily one thing, but any particular timeline or event that stands out?
I don't know if there's an event. There's a bunch of operations that stand out. That we got to do. Some of them we can't, talk about on the podcast, but we got to do some operations that are, you can't really talk about them, but those are sort of like
just call them high profile.
Highlight items where you get to talk to the president, and that was pretty good. We got to have a conversation with Obama in a room. He called in one time and talked to us, and I'm like, I don't care what your political leanings are. If you're talking to the United States president, that's a big deal for me. I don't care what political side you land on. You get to meet the president or talk to the president. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
But I think getting to, just looking overall, like at just umbrella wise, like being able to thinking about it was just year after year after year of deploying and getting to do all the things that you wanted to do when you were like, I want to try to go be a commando. Yeah. And it was happening, and it was live, and then the consequences were happening. Low point for sure was August 6, 2011, when Extortion got shot down.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. So we were in, that was our team, and so some of those guys I had known for over a decade.
It was 2 Troop, right?
Yep.
I mean, so you and I both started off in E-Team.
Yeah.
If you had extended the timeline long enough, right, and we had stayed on that, like, because people asked me about that too, and I knew the same thing. I knew a lot of the guys. You worked with them a lot longer, but it's not an impossibility that if you had stayed and not moved on, you'd been in that helicopter as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, so
were you over in OEF when that happened?
Yeah, no, yeah, we were over in JBAD, and we were just in different bases.
Yeah.
And 2 hours before those guys got hit, I was on text and computer chat, military computer chat with 2 of the guys, just talking about the next training cycle coming up. Like, hey, what trips you guys coming up? How can we support you guys? Because we all, when we come together, we train a lot together. So
were you a team leader at that point?
No. No, yeah, I was.
Okay.
I was.
Where in the deployment cycle was extortion? Towards the tail end?
Middle.
Middle, okay.
Yeah, we rolled out in like, I want to say end of June, beginning of July-ish. So there was like, into August. So it was just in the middle block,
Yep.
I would say. And I was chatting to two of the guys, and they're like, hey, we got to roll out. Something's popping up. And I was like, okay, I'll talk to you dickheads later. And then it was, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours later, one of the boys opens the hut. And overseas, we have these huts we live in are like built out of plywood, and they're pretty much the same everywhere.
Bee huts?
Yeah, they're just plywood walls. There's an AC unit in there.
Why are they called bee huts?
Because I think the Seabees build them.
So they just take the B, like CB hut is short for CB hut?
And there's probably a CB listening to this that knows this, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's because of the Seabees built them.
Okay.
Because the Seabees are the damn saviors of the whole thing.
Yes.
I mean, if you should roll up somewhere and there's no Seabees, no infrastructure.
No, you're sleeping on gravel.
Yeah, we're like, this is terrible. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. No. But I forgot where we were going with this.
You're talking about extortion. Somebody opened the bee hut door.
Yeah, opens the bee hut door, yells down like, hey, those guys just got shot down. I'm like, what guys? They're like, the boys over 2 Triple. I'm like, no, they didn't. I was like, no, they didn't. It was just like, we don't get shot down. What are you talking about? And so I go over to the computer screen room, right, with all the computer screens, and then we're good in there. And the first thing I saw where I was like, this is not good, was just a black circle, because we're looking at thermal.
Yeah.
And you just see the black circle, and you hear the comm, they're trying to reach out with, get them on comms, and like any station, please respond.
Yeah.
And there was nothing. And then like, yeah, we weren't sure at that point if they had been dropped off, or if they
How
were
bad
still
it was,
in, or like, we're like, they're probably already on the ground somewhere over there helping out with the Rangers. You know how the story went, it's all out there anyway. And then the moment I realized that this was real and that those guys were gone, and is when when they put over the ticker, it comes out of the main base over in wherever they put it out, wherever they put it out from. But they the text is extortion 17 down. It was like 37 or 38 souls on board. Whenever they say souls on board, that's basically a soft confirmation that they're lost. And then we saw that come across from the base from Bagram.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh fuck. Because that means they've confirmed something or another. They've gotten to a point to where they're going to call this basically a soft, announcement, so to speak. And then it was just, but that was definitely a low point there for sure. Yeah.
What happened on the rest of that deployment? Was it like an all halt? Because
they stood us down for sure.
50% of the force, right?
Yeah. It was half of us that were overseas were dead at that point. And then they stood us down because we. And this is where like I'd really liked the Rangers before, but after this night and after this operation, and including what the Rangers guys what they did with Red Wings, up in Kunar, is they went out to the crash site like these young dudes, and the Rangers generally tend to be younger than we are on average. They went out to the crash site and they cleaned that place up, and I mean they're talking like looking at American soldiers. They didn't want us to go.
Yeah.
Because we started putting our stuff on. We were getting radio checks. We're like, we're going to the site right fucking now. Spin the birds.
Yeah.
Like we're not. But it was looking back on it. It was probably a good call not to have us go and clean up our own.
For sure.
Best friends.
Didn't it burn for over a day?
Oh yeah, a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the metal was on fire. Like everything was burning.
Oh, the aircraft aluminum. Yeah. Once that starts, you can't put that out.
And then so the Rangers went out there. They cleaned the whole site up, and then these boys, they carried a section of a rotor blade. It was at least, I think it was, we measured, I think it had an arm length on it. It was a 7-foot section of rotor blade. They carried through Indian territory, so to speak, for kilometers and kilometers and kilometers. They carried this thing a long fucking ways so that they could hand it to us and say, this is what we got off the target from your teammates. And like that thing is, dude, when they brought that over to us, I was just like,
yeah,
you guys are amazing.
Fucking humbling for sure.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. You think you're at the absolute tip of the spear, and then you see some people do some shit like that, and you're like, I'm not fucking worthy.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. And so like,
did they end up just bipping that thing? afterwards, after they got everything out they could?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they did once we got we recovered everything that needed to be recovered. Firstly, obviously our guys,
Personnel, yeah.
then whatever equipment, sensitive items, that whole thing. I'm not sure what they did with the site. It was next to a village, so I don't think they dropped anything big. But yeah, those. The other thing, I guess that leads me to this point. Like the other thing that I liked about when you're busy is the competition between units. Like, like we want to get a mission, right? And everyone's like clamoring, like in the 90s, like, getting a mission was like a juicy giant steak with the wolves just
in the 90s, the golden Connex box would have opened.
Yeah, right. The golden Connex box with all the things you need to make your commando dreams come true.
God, took me 10 years to realize, like, God damn it, there is no golden Connex box.
Right.
Well, actually, the golden Connex box is the command because it's just the budget.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But it was like, the competition became between units and getting missions and all that really started to level out, and there was less like, oh, the Rangers, you guys just you guys do you just basically support us, like you're here to serve us because we're at this higher level of tier or whatever.
Yep. And
it got to the point to where we were just happy to have those guys on target. We would give them targets, they would give us targets, and we would work together. It became more like we became closer, like more meshed, even between Navy, Army, Air Force. Like it got tighter across the board, and that was like, it was really enjoyable because once that started to happen, your team gets a lot stronger because now you have assets in other units, and you're not hoarding information, and you're not hoarding equipment.
Yeah.
And like if units that aren't as well funded, like don't have things, you're like, oh dude, like you see some Marines, you're like, bro, like what are you wearing? Like, because they would like look at us like so jealous of what we had.
Yep.
And I remember like reaching in my bag and just handing them like, here, I don't even know if you're allowed to wear this kit, but here you go. If you get to a point you can wear that. Here's some extra mags. Here's you know what I mean? So there was a lot of sharing going on because everyone had enough pie on their plate to where they were like getting full.
But what's crazy is that enough time had to expire for that to happen, because that certainly wasn't happening in 02, 03, 04, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because everybody had to get their plate because we had lived in a theoretical world.
Yeah. Totally.
And then everybody was like, oh, this steak is awesome.
You had to go through the buffet line.
Yes.
Stack one time, get full,
And
then they're like, hey,
like,
we need you to go through again. You're like, I'm getting kind of full. Like,
yeah. Yeah, it took time for sure. Yeah, I experienced that same thing.
Yeah.
How was the impact on your amazing career on your family?
Well, family fell apart, like a lot of them did. I was married 21 years, had 2 kids, and I think what happens is it's like I would say it's also not exclusive to just military, because we're on the news a lot when there's a war going on. It's like law enforcement, first responders, like. If you're going to work and you're seeing heavy stuff every day and your job isn't just spreadsheets and something like that, it starts to take a toll.
Also a lack of control of your schedule too. So a high consequence, high demand, low control of your time away.
Unpredictable lifestyle.
Yep.
Yeah, the unpredictability of it. And so what happens is the wives, and they start to, or the husbands in some cases, they start to raise the family on their own without you. And and when you show up, you don't show up. You're not really like in the position that you think you're in, because their schedule's set. They have a program. The kids are going to certain practices. They're in now they're in band, and they're going to frickin' football practice or soccer or ice hockey, and so coming home and trying to find your place inside the family unit again was
without disrupting.
Without disrupting, and it became harder after every deployment, because the stress level in the family would increase and the stress level on you would increase. And then what happened, I think, with us and all of us, like that have similar sort of jobs, is you start to change, but you don't see yourself changing. They see you changing, and then they'll mention every once in a while, like, hey, you're just different now. You're changing, like, and it's not a positive. Like it's like you're more intense. It's all the things that everyone.
They're not giving you a pat on the back on that comment. They're giving you a cautionary warning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a foreshadowing. It's like, hey, something needs to change, like, because you're changing, and we don't necessarily like how you are. But to us, you become different, and you're like, what do you mean? I'm the same person. Look, same house, same guy. I shave the same haircut, but your approach to life and your views and our behavior patterns definitely change, and we don't see it, and they see it, and that's why I think our divorce rate at the team it was over 85% or something like that. It was astronomical by the time 2010 rolled around. We had enough years of this pattern, and like everyone was getting divorced, and so like my family fell apart. Sure, we tried to hold it together at the end, and it just didn't work for me. It didn't work out, but
what was the impact on your kids? So mine were super, super young. To be honest with you, I don't think any of my kids have any interest, understanding, or idea what I used to do for a living. But your kids were older. What did you notice the impact on your kids with a career?
So my son and my daughter. My son's 25. His name's Chase, and my daughter Claire is just turned 20, and they're like, and my daughter is like she's the polar opposite, but with the same intensity. Like she has like our type of community sort of intensity, but she's like a vegan hippie business entrepreneur girl that likes to walk around barefoot with ankle bells, and she lives in Maui.
You're joking about the bells, right?
No.
Fuck.
No ankle bells. You ever been to a Dead show? Come on.
No. No. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm not a huge country fan, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So my daughter basically like I don't know how much of this had an effect on her, like her growing up in this environment, but I definitely think it definitely impacted her. But she's kind of became an old soul.
How old was she in 2005? Actually, I should be able to. She was what, 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So really young when you got hit.
Okay.
Yeah.
But she was at
she
an
was
age.
12.
She was growing into an age where she could remember by the time you got out.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That was what I was trying to understand.
She was, when extortion got hit, I think she was 12 years old. So like, 12 years old, you're completely
she got a
aware
full
of
understanding of
what's
that.
going
Yeah.
on.
And your son was even older.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My son's 5 years older than she was. So my son was 17 when extortion got hit. So my son's early years, he played ice hockey competitively, and he poured himself into ice hockey, and as like intense dads, I always like would help my son like with training but I think I was definitely I was overbearing. I would say I was too intense with like, you got to have drive and motivation and never quit, and like I really pushed it harder than I think I should have.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, like looking back at the
you can push him away as opposed to drawing him closer. It's a balance, man.
Yeah.
I struggle with the same thing with my kids. Like, they'll say something, and I just want to be like, "You were not allowed to be weak. Like, why would you quit?" And then in the head, I'm like, okay, that approach is not going to work.
Right.
You're going to do what I tell you to do because I'm physically standing here, but what I want to do is develop a young man that's going to do what I need you to do or what you should do, whether or not I'm telling you to do it or not. And the path that I have found that is least successful is getting in their shit with the overbearing.
Right.
And of course I continuously make that mistake because we're assholes. But
yeah. Totally.
And it's been ingrained into us, and it was largely, I think, why we were successful in our careers, but it's got negative consequences that have to be controlled.
Yeah. But I think what so like let's say like looking at the way we're looking at it right now is like, let's say we're like a family on an island with no network. One thing that we had that did help was my kids' grandparents and my wife at the time's parents. They moved to Virginia Beach to be near the grandkids, and they were like a huge support structure for them. They provided so much stability. When I was gone, I think we were gone on average at something around like 7 or 8 months out of the year for 20 years. I mean, that's like the average you're gone. It's ridiculous. But, having a support structure out there, like family nearby that can help support is a game changer. It's huge. But my son went on, he left home after sophomore year in high school to go play ice hockey up in northern Michigan, to go play U18 AAA because he wanted to, he's like, yeah, I'm going to go for it. I want to try to go play college hockey. And he ended up playing college hockey at Liberty University. He just got his business degree this summer. And it's kind of funny, like the way things are going nowadays, right? He got his business degree. He's got a BS in marketing and business, and he's in the trades now. He's trying to decide if he's going to go electrical or plumbing. Yeah. Because he's like, he saw what those guys are getting paid and the demand.
Yeah.
And the market, the way it's going for
it's
the
a win-win.
trades. And now he's in high-rise construction in Memphis, Tennessee. He's up there sending me pictures. He's up in a building wearing an orange vest, with like, just like a skeleton of a building up there soldering pipes together.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of him. I'm like, that's awesome, man.
Good on him.
Yeah, totally. So the kids have done well, and even though the family didn't stay together, there's always life afterwards.
Yeah.
Like I've met this girl.
Off camera.
Yeah. And so there's always life after something like that falls apart. It's not the end.
Yeah.
And there were dark times for sure. Like when I first got out, like you'd go through I'm sure you've gone through that, like some dark periods.
It's everything for me is it's shiny lights and positive. Yeah.
Do you have a course I can sign up for at all?
I do. It's
okay.
$19.99 a week.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's just $19.
Yeah, 99 cents, $20.
Okay, I
meant.
Yeah.
No, it sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm my own worst enemy. If you give me enough time with me by myself, thinking about me, it doesn't go good places. Like it's the isolation. What you're talking about, the network of people. The isolation for me, I found, is the worst. And the times of just I don't know, self-reflection or just. It was tough for me getting out of the military. I struggled for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Along those lines, do you think, looking back at your career and where you spent the majority of your time, do you think they should limit the number of combat deployments or the amount of time people can spend in combat?
I would say, ideally, that probably wouldn't be a terrible idea, or create more of a buffer between deployments.
Yeah.
But then, there's that phrase where you can't generate an unlimited amount of special operations overnight. So the demand is out there, and we're going to fill the demand because ultimately we're working for the DoD, and we're machines that they deploy as tools to accomplish tasks. And if the machine gets a little wear and tear, that's part of the game.
Yeah.
And so I think the demands are always going to outweigh the concerns of the individual, because when you sign up, you're signing over your life, and you really, that's what we all did. You're a part of a greater thing right now, and you're a cog in there, and your cog, when it's time, you need to be turning when they say we need these cogs turning.
Yeah, I'm just curious your thoughts, because having been out for a while, I think this country has been in sustained combat longer than it ever has been in its history.
Yeah.
And nobody knows the actual consequences of that. The divorce rate at 85%.
Right.
Guys deciding that the solution to how they're feeling is to put a fucking gun in their mouth.
Right.
And I have no data to support anything. I spend enough time thinking, how much connection is there between amount of time gone, stress on the family, things that you see overseas.
Okay, well, think about this. Let's take February 4th, 2005. You're not shot yet.
Yep.
And we get an email from the command saying, hey, we're going to try to limit the trauma that you're experiencing, and you won't deploy again for 18 months after this deployment.
Yep.
What would you have said?
A spam filter would have picked that up.
Right.
It would have been tough because I was in my early 20s where I wanted to be doing what I wanted to do. But that's what I'm saying. But here's the thing. People at our age have the perspective looking back. And the guy who would have received that email at 25, I don't know how old was I when I got shot. 2005, I was 77. I was 28 when I got shot.
Okay.
My 41-year-old self now, I would want to go back and talk to that 28-year-old kid who got that email, because my family life certainly isn't perfect. I didn't go nearly as deep into the career field as you did and do the things that you did, but but the thing is, though, I was around it enough where it had the impact on my family, but I never saw it because it was a 1% slide at a time. And when my wife and I argue sometimes, we argue about shit from Virginia Beach, which is a lifetime ago.
Right.
And we argue about it because I never had the time to close the loop on it, because it was hey, I gotta go for this rut. I gotta go on this trip. And so it doesn't go away. It's just a staph infection that's going to come back later on. And I never would have been able to, because I had the same headspace as you. If I had gotten, I'd be able to screw you, man, auto send a spam folder.
Yeah.
But now knowing what I know, I would at least, I feel responsible for protecting my younger self. And so I would feel responsible for protecting the younger guys.
So you sound less selfish than I am, because right now I'm thinking,
That's always been the case.
yeah. But like, I at the time, and even now looking back on it, I'm like, this isn't going to last forever. This is what you've wanted your whole life. Like, I was reading books about LERPs in Vietnam and Navy SEALs in Vietnam when I was in middle school.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I kind of like, you asked for this.
Yep.
It's time to get it on, and I know that there's a window there where it wasn't going to last, and the operations were so fucking good. I didn't want to miss a second of it.
Yep.
So, like, if they were to say that, I would have been immediately like, oh, I'm gonna go to like try to go to Marine Recon. Or I'm gonna go to try to go to the BAT, or like I would have tried to found another avenue so I could keep doing it.
But that's because we're morons.
Yeah, no, we're selfish.
Well, and you remember the enlistment contracts that we sign. There's no space for have your kids sign here, have your wife sign here. Yeah. So when I was young and reading those books, like, and I hear you say that because I read the same books, I was thinking only of myself. And it wasn't until halfway through my military career that there were other people to think about. But I was, you know what I mean? I was like, because I was the same way. Like, I was committed. Like, dude, 2 months after I got shot, I'm doing fucking tandems, down in Moyoc, because, like, I couldn't mentally accept the fact that I was done.
Right.
Like, it was like doing 800 miles an hour in the Indy 500, and I was like, oops, missed fifth gear. That just went in reverse. There goes the tranny. I couldn't process it mentally. That was the hardest part for me, because I didn't want to be done. Right. And I can only imagine the asshole that I was, like, being around Jamie, like, because I was pissed. I just wanted to deploy again, and I'm like, God, if I could just go back and have a little chat with myself.
And it's like the same, mantra that everyone at this point, like, there's so many books written about it and so many stories about it, where once you're in combat with guys, everything else sort of just is a second place to that in a way. Yeah. And not always, but it's definitely it is a high competitor for first place at all times. and you get addicted to it, and you don't want it to stop. I did.
I think heroin addicts talk the same way.
I mean, literally, yeah. For sure, because we're addicted to endorphins, right? And you're addicted to, like, the endorphins that come along with the excitement of the job and the training you do. And
you're addicted to winning. You're addicted to winning.
That's what it is.
A buddy of mine was asking me about just war in general. He's like, and he asked me, he's like, what's the worst part about war? And I thought about it for a second. I said, that it ends. He's like, what are you talking about? You're a psychopath. I'm like, dude, I've never felt such clarity of focus, clarity of purpose, clarity of like, all of my systems were functioning at a peak level. I knew what I was going to do. I knew what my job. I knew what the people next to me were doing, and it was awesome because and at the same time, you are participating. And I was going to say playing, but it's not. You're participating in the highest risk, highest consequence environment, and you're winning. Yeah. So yeah, I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved the winning. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
And you get addicted to it for sure. I don't know. Now where I'm at in my life, I think back, I'm like, I just wonder what the long-term consequences are for guys who, okay, I'm on my 22nd deployment. Like, that might be too much.
Yeah. I agree. There's a point, like kind of what I was saying earlier. Like, I did get to a point to where I started thinking about everything that I got to do personally as a commando guy.
Yep.
And I was like, I pretty much have checked every block, and the remaining blocks are not looking good. Getting shot, dying, and so I'm like, I'm okay to leave now. That's why I left it. That's one of the reasons I left at 20.
How was your transition out? So let's talk about post-military.
Yeah. So when I joined the military, I was either, like I mentioned before, I was either going to move to Jackson Hole and start skiing, because in the magazines that I was reading, that's where all, like, the extreme rad shit was going down. I'm like, oh my God, Jackson Hole is where it's happening. I need to go there and learn how to, like, snowboard or ski down really steep shit.
Yep.
Or I'm gonna go become a team guy. So I became a team guy. But the entire time I was in the Navy, not a day went by to where I didn't think about moving to the mountains. I said, one day I'm going to the mountains. I'm gonna do what my other option that I didn't take when I was 18 years old. I'm going to go that route. And so I knew I was going to move out west, and I wanted to be, my rule was I wanted to be within a 15-minute drive of a ski area, because I wanted to ski. because I knew I had to do something physical. I had to have some physical activity involved in my life. I couldn't go. There's no way I could go like get a job in like an office or something like that. They would fire me in 2 days.
I actually want to do that, but I want to produce it as a reality TV show. Or we take like a team of dudes and we put them in IBM. Imagine how amazing it would be.
Put one kid, one of us in charge of spreadsheets.
But no, like to watch us like take over the organization, it'd be like a Ebola infection, because they put us in a thing of cubicles, right? And the first thing we would do is obviously recruit the people in the neighboring cubicles, and they would love us. So we would corrupt them, and their work productivity would go down. Right. And then the way that we talk to each other at work, we would have some suicides from the other people that work there because they cannot tolerate the way. And then, like, the ratings would go through the roof, so we get season 2. And the next thing you know, it's like you and I in the CEO suite with, like, ascots smoking, like ivory-handled pipes, talking about the trajectory of the company. And it's like, how did this happen? It'd be the best TV show ever. No, we can't go into that environment. Yeah. I would blow my brains out.
Yeah, no, it's not fucking working. But so I basically loaded up an RV. I had, divorce was in progress. We were still like making those last ditch attempts to like, hold the family together. And you want to make attempts, obviously like real attempts to hold it together after you've been together for 20 years or 21 years, right? You want to at least know at the end of it you gave it all you had. And I do absolutely 100% believe I gave it all I had at the end. I didn't give it all I had while I was deploying and I was gone all the time. That's not giving it all you have to your family, being gone 7 or 8 months out of the year. You're just not giving all you have to your family. You're just not. Because either one of us, at any point, we could have said, you could have gone to Bud's and, when the war was getting hot. You could have said, no, I'm going to go do shore duty and I'm going to go chill. But we chose not to do that, which in my mind, that was a selfish decision. Because I wanted to go and do what I came here to fucking do, and we lived through the damn 90s, motherfuckers. So I felt like we're due. We got to make it happen. Yeah. So I loaded up an RV. I bought a 44-foot RV. Had a Chevy 3500 dually, toy hauler. Had a bunch of dirt bikes and action sports stuff. Yep. Right. I call you're getting rad bro down stuff, right? Just because you're. And I drove out to Sun Valley and moved out here. And I knew one person when I moved to town, pulled up to the RV park, plugged in the shitter tube, electrical, and I was like, well, there's the ski hill. Drove into town, started checking out the mountain, started, threw some running shoes on, started jogging around the mountain, checking it out. And I'm like, yeah, this is it. Okay, now I got to start training for ski patrol.
Having never skied.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Snowboarded.
How much time did you give yourself? And what was a realistic window?
2 years. I need 2 years of 110-day years before I would be ready for tryouts. But they don't hold tryouts every year for ski patrol. It's when they need
demand. Somebody. Yeah. How many people do you know that have become ski patrol in under 2 years?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think the answer is 0. Who moved to a place and say, I'm going to be ski patrol. However, how do I put these skis on?
Yeah, right. However, where's the front?
Yeah. Is this right? Do I walk across the street with these like a Jerry?
But like, no, it was like, talking to like Trevor. I was talking to like Trevor. He mentioned he mentioned it last night while we were hanging out. He said, if you spent like a career learning how to learn, and so we're really good at learning. And so, like, how do we learn? We look him in the eyes, and when the guy, we just go, Roger. And when you have, like, a world-class canopy pilot teaching you, this is how you fly a fucking parachute, motherfucker.
And they say, do A, B, and C. You go.
You're like, yep, got it.
Yeah, check. And you never deviate from A, B, and C.
Yeah, and you just keep. Yeah. So you're gaining ground with every input of information. So I had a guy here in town, Waylon Barrett, took me under his wing. He said, bro, I'm going to teach you how to ski. And he's a level 4 PSIA ski instructor. His lessons.
Nothing you just said makes sense.
Yeah, he's like a high-level, like, ski instructor. Like, to hire him for the day, I think is $600 or $800 for the day to teach you how to ski. But he was like, hey, you're a vet. I want to help you out. We get along good. And so he taught me how to ski. I started out in the frickin' pizza, just in the attack pizza position, just what? Like just aggro pizzaing. And then here you are, you're like, yeah, I'm a former commando badass dude. And then these little kids are just ripping next to you.
Yeah.
And then like doing that was like, oh, I'm at the beginning again.
Yeah.
The literal beginning, like where everyone here is better than me.
Did you find that refreshing though?
Yes.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah,
yes,
many times.
Completely refreshing.
Yep.
Because I think in a way, like I felt like I could hide in it. Like, because I don't need to be commando guy. I'm just a person learning I'm just a gomer out here learning how to ski. I'm just fucking nobody. I'm not, don't ask me any questions about prior military. Like, you're just try to be a little bit anonymous, I think. In that, and it feels good to just be starting out and being in that environment again, because it brings you back to when you were going through selection, you were going through some tryouts, or you were in some school and it was hard, and so it's just like, okay, another thing. Like, and so when I was here in my first 2 years, I'm like, I got to focus on something, because if I sit in my house, what I'm going to do is probably just drink a shit ton, get into drugs, and my life is going to spiral into a hole, because I'm going to live in a house in a dark room by myself. And that's, I think, where guys, when they hole up and they isolate. So but I'm like, I'm not those guys. I'm not that. When I got here, I started like remembering how they talked about how PTS or PTSD, they call it, the terms changed a little bit, but how it affects people. Like, you don't isolate. And I'm like, am I isolating? Well, I live in the mountains by myself in a house. Yeah, I'm probably isolating. I need to get out. And so having a mission was key. So I'm like, guys would be like, hey, I knew one of my buddies here, Mike Torres, that works for Smith Optics, awesome guy, are still like best friends. He's like, what are you up to? I'm like, oh, I'm training today. He's like, oh, cool. You going to the Y? You going to the gym? I'm like, no, skiing. He's like, training? What do you mean training skiing? I'm like, training for ski patrol, dude. He's like, he just laughed. He's like, what are you training for ski patrol? Are you shitting me? And I'm like, yeah, let's go skiing. Let's go. And so we just, every day, my goal was to go uphill, click into boots, and just get better, be able to go down the hill and just start learning from people. And then every once in a while, I'd find myself on a chairlift with Mike and another guy, and afterwards, Mike would be like, oh, that guy was in the X Games. Like, he'd be a guy to listen to on how to ski. And I'm like, hey, can we do a run together? And the guy's like, yeah, sure, let's go. And I said, okay, let me tell you right away, I suck fucking balls at skiing. and if you tell me, I just want one good fucking takeaway. Just watch me ski.
Also, how do you do a backflip?
Well, that was the next day, right? And just listening to people that have zero combat experience, zero military, but I don't give a shit. Like, I absolutely respect guys for their expertise in their field as much as I do a dude that's walking around with a fucking Medal of Honor around his neck.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, you're a badass. Like,
no, it's the same thing. It's just a different field.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And they just decided a different route. Like, those guys are the same people that are the obsessed mindset people that would probably make it through buds.
Yes.
In a lot of cases, not every case, but I would say average-wise, they would have a higher than average passing rate getting through SEAL training.
For sure.
A lot of these obsessed, climber guys and, jiu-jitsu guys and MMA dudes.
Anybody who's willing to go down a path far enough where it starts getting into sacrificing quality of life for a goal, pain, and they're starting to push through stuff. Now you're starting to go up the bell curve of people who are going to be successful.
And going a decade with zero glory, just grinding it for a fucking decade.
But doing shit that people, if they were to swing the spotlight on you, you would have all the glory.
Right.
But you're just a dude living in a van down by the river climbing shit.
Yeah, totally.
So where'd 30 Seconds Out come from? Let's get to the company you got going now.
I mean, I know you know what it's about, but it was kind of like
I've heard the term a couple times.
Yeah, you have like 30.
No, but I mean, just in general, it's I'm fascinated by what people do when they get out of the military, because I actually don't know what I do for a living, and I'm still trying to figure it out. So my least favorite question, people are like, what do you do? And I go, I don't know. And they're like, okay, you don't have to be an asshole. You could just tell me. I'm like, no, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out in my 40s.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, so how would you describe it? Apparel company?
Yeah. People say, what do you do? I say, I sell T-shirts on the internet. And but basically, I kind of what I looked in my mindset when I first started thinking about just doing it was, I'd watch I'm a hockey fan, so I watch like these hockey players and all these guys like Red Bull dudes doing rad Red Bull shit, jumping off buildings and doing crazy shit. And I'm like, man, these guys would get a lot of attention and credit and like respect from the world for doing these rad things. And I think about things that like I did with you and a bunch of other guys. And I'm like, this is a different type of rad shit that we did. Like risking your life every night. Every night you going out, like how many times did you look at your bunk going, okay, well, I don't want my friends to have to come in here and deal with my dirty gross ass piss bottles under the bed. So before like a heavy hit, you throw, maybe throw your piss bottles away.
I went the other way. I would just label it as
just
like
start
lemonade.
Stacking them up.
No, just label it as like lemonade or like.
So for people that are listening, the piss bottle thing is, if you don't know what it is, a lot of people might not.
It's kind of a thing.
It's so like when you're overseas, the bathroom, like where we live in, like these plywood huts we talked about earlier.
It's at least 20 feet away, which is far too far.
It's a ridiculous trek. It's an expedition to get to the pisser.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're not doing that. We got sleeping to do and stuff.
Yeah, and these water bottles everywhere.
And we have water bottles because that's how we get water. So the water bottles become our urinals, and we all just start peeing out of the sides of our beds, and you start stacking these bottles under your bed. And it would get so impressive sometimes where people were running out of room under their bed with the piss bottles.
Yeah, the urine shrine.
I'm like, guys, it's getting to a point here, like.
Yeah. The urine shrine was awesome,
dude. And then every once in a while, somebody would spill one, and then I actually saw somebody on a night while we were.
They drank it.
Yeah,
I heard somebody drank their own piss once. I didn't see it.
I saw it.
Just
the. No, it wasn't just piss. It was piss mixed with Copenhagen dipspit.
No, dipspit, solid.
Yeah, with the urine in the bottle.
Yeah,
and just took a full chugger, just a boom, and then just immediately the trampoline. And I saw him do it because we were all like. We were sitting in the room. We had a big screen up. We were like probably watching Tombstone, which we've seen 10 trillion times, right? And then the dude just
Band of Brothers.
Yeah, grabs it off the top shelf. He's still watching the movie. Unscrews the cap because we had other good Gatorades laying around.
Yeah.
And takes a swig, and we all look over at the side. We're like, no! And he's like, we're just like, dude, don't spit it in here. Run out the door. So we're not holding out the door and just spits it out the door.
Do you think it was his own piss?
Oh no, it definitely was not his own piss because he didn't live. He didn't live in that bee hut. That was another man's piss, right down the fucking gullet, dude. Just right away.
Oh, yeah. No documentary truly has ever captured that aspect. Of the depravity and savagery of some of the people that we used to work with.
Oh my god. Dude, I remember there was like one of the base guys at one of the bases, and I probably shouldn't even be talking about this, but I don't really give a fuck. He was like, because he knew, like, guys, some of the guys would, sneak little bottles or something, like, liquor overseas. And if you don't know that, you're a fucking goddamn moron. But he's like out there at the base, and he's like one of the base guys, and he's like all official, and he's like, I'm looking, he's like, hey, how's it going? Whatever his name was, he's like, what's going on? He's like, I'm looking for liquor and women. And then I go, so are we. Where are they? You know what I mean? He goes over there trying to bust us for, whatever. But I don't know.
Yeah, it was bizarre. I woke up one morning. I can't use this person's name, but just talking about the savagery. I woke up one morning and I rolled over in my cot. Same thing in a bee hut. And like this dude had just like thrown everything off that he was wearing. And so his kit was over here, his top was over here, and his pants were like halfway between my bed and his. And they were covered in shit. And I'm like...
From the pant leg up or he originated the shit?
From the pant inside down.
Okay.
I'm like, hey, dude, what the fuck? He's like, oh, yeah, dude, I shit my pants last night on Target. I'm going to take care of that in the morning. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
In the morning?
Yeah. I'm like, you're just going to take off shit-filled pants and throw them in between your bed and mine? These are the people that we worked with doing... Very sensitive, high level, It's like, and then they would, pee in a bottle.
Totally.
So back to 30 seconds out. We took a wild right turn there.
Yeah, that's right. So I started looking at this cool shit, and I said, I want to do something, but I don't want to I'm not going to write a book and talk about exact tactics and how we did things and break it all down into the nitty gritty. And I'm like, I don't. That's not something I want to do, but I think there's a cool element to our culture, like, because we had a culture, like, you know what I mean, where we all like war movies, and we all like kind of like sick humor a little bit,
gallows humor, yeah.
And so I started like just coming up with ideas and like combining a little bit of like kind of the motivational mindset, like no one is coming, it's up to us. And where I felt that, like where like that no one is coming, like this fucking shit here, was when we started when the war started really going, and then every night we would go out, and we would have a QRF, which was like basically a backup force that would come, but like let's say we were going on a hostage rescue or something like that, like you're it. And I think that this applies to like firefighters, law enforcement guys doing undercover work.
Yeah. Anybody who's far enough out on the front leading edge, yes, you do have backup, but by the time it gets there, it's going to be a cleanup force.
Yeah. They're there, they show up with brooms and a mop, and
Yes, they're going to come.
Yeah.
But it's not going to matter to you.
And so that feeling of you really feel that, I think, going into like the line units where you're a direct combat unit. You're like, oh, you guys are going to see combat for sure. So by the time the bullets are done flying, there's nobody coming. Like, it's up to you and whoever you're there with and however you trained. You're like, we're going to, what do they say? You're going to perform to the level of your training.
You're going to fall to the level of your training.
You're going to fall to the level. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your training, which a lot of people confuse.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm going to be good. No, that's called luck, bitch.
Yeah.
If you
totally.
extend the timeline out long enough, you're going to get to the actual level of your training.
And so, that's kind of like where that sort of. And so I was like, hey, there's a lot of cool like military takeaways coming from like a combat background that I think could cross over and apply to like other things. And so one of the first cool things I had was I had like an investment banking group in Manhattan. They bought a bunch of my "No One Is Coming, It's Up to Us" shirts, and they put it on Twitter, and I saw it there, and I was like, holy shit, a bunch of bankers are wearing my T-shirt as like their team shirt. I'm like, and so I felt like a little bit like, oh, what I'm doing, it validated what I was doing. Up at that point, I wasn't sure if anybody was really getting what I was trying to.
What was your first item you created?
Sticker.
A sticker?
Yeah.
Strong opening. I like it.
Yeah.
Low overhead.
No, right, because it's a good experiment. You don't gotta invest hundreds of dollars in T-shirts that you don't know if anyone's gonna buy. I'm like, I'll buy $70 worth of stickers and see if anybody wants them.
Yeah, sticker on a website and you're in business.
Yeah. But I just started with stickers and then just doing T-shirts and like making those like patches and stuff like that.
So what are you at, about 3 years?
4, just over 4. Yeah.
What have you learned along the way, business-wise?
I'm still learning all the time. I'm constantly listening to I think right now if you look behind there, I think there's close to 20 business books right there that I'm kind of working my way through right now, and then I'm also huge on audiobooks. And it's learning the whole business thing. Like, it's funny. I've heard guys several occasions from our background go, oh, when I get out, I'm gonna become the CEO of a company. And I'm like,
no, you're not.
I'm like, what company? Like, in 10 years after you create the company, you learn how to do business. Then you'll be the CEO. You're not stepping out of special operations and becoming the CEO of a corporation.
Well, you're not qualified to.
No fucking idea what is going on. Zero idea. And I think that's something that I've learned is like, I know a lot about doing commando stuff, but I don't know anything about business. And the thing about it is the bottom line doesn't lie. And so like your sales numbers, they're going to tell you how much you know about business or how much you care about your business. And so the numbers will tell you. And so right there is just a good hard line, no bullshit. Are you succeeding or not? Well, the numbers are right there. They're telling you. It's not a soft thing.
Yeah. You made some mistakes along the way?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll buy a bunch of these because these are awesome. And you're like, oh, shit.
Or like you're like, I love this one thing. Like, the people are going to love this. And then it's just crickets and tumbleweeds. And you're like, but I loved it. Well, come on, guys. Fucking get it.
Why don't you guys understand? If I think it's cool, it's going to sell.
Dude, I got to hold on. I got to write this.
You're good.
I have to. Yeah, business. So, like, once, like, I got out, and I'm like, okay, how am I going to do business? And so you start reading a couple books, and then you just try to start figuring it out by yourself. And you're like, I think we feel really self-confident. You're like, I can fucking do this. I've done all kinds of other like hard shit. But you start doing it, and then you start feeling like you're spinning your wheels. And you're like, well, let me just hear what this guy has to say. Yeah. And then all of a sudden your mind's like, poof, poof. I'm like, I know nothing.
Yeah.
And then he recommends somebody, and then I think what started me the very first like down the entire road of learning about business and entrepreneurship and creating a life that is not governed by somebody else was the Tim Ferriss podcast. I started listening to that, and my mind I was like, what? And then I started reading the books, and then once you're into that, if you're passionate and you want to build something, then you just take your obsession, you become get obsessed on fucking that. Learn how to do a business, because your other option is
get a job,
collecting a little retirement, get a job, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting a job, but giving in the military, we have a little bit of an advantage when we get out. If you retire and you get either a medical, stipend at the end, or you get some, your retirement at 20 years, it covers like, your mortgage or your rent. So it gives you a little bit of a cushion so that you can focus on something else.
Yeah.
And if you choose to take that opportunity and time to learn and just be a new person and shut your fucking mouth and just listen to what people have to say, because these people know a lot about business. And like, I'm in a coaching group now called the Arate Accelerator right now with Ed Milet and Andy Frisella. And we're in this group, and you pay every month to be in it. And these are guys that are combined worth close to $1 billion. They do $1 billion a year in revenue, close to combined. I mean, they're getting up there. And I'm like, oh yeah, am I going to listen to what these guys have to say about business? You're fucking damn right I am.
What are some changes you've made from when you started and then you dove into the business books and the coaching group? Like, what are some changes you've made?
Less products.
Fewer SKUs?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Focus on making your core product better and just improve that. Because at first you start out, you're like, I'm going to make this, and you start like making all these products just because you're basically you're just throwing lines in the water and seeing what fish bite, right?
Yeah.
You're like, what are they biting? I don't know about business. I don't know how to, I don't have another, I don't have a bunch of experience in business school that tells me things I probably should know at this point. So you start experimenting, and then you start chiseling it down, and then but then you start going down the road, or I did, of, if I keep adding new products that will sell, then I'll just keep doing that and I'll make good money. But then pretty soon you start getting spread so fucking thin that you can't keep up with the vodka company you were trying to start, and your t-shirt company, and your, now I want to start, like a podcast, or now you're so thin, like you're not good at anything.
Yep.
And so you have like learning how to let go of like your little pet favorites because it just doesn't fit your business model is a tough thing to do. And you should have to, it's a lot of people call it a kill list. So you're like, okay, let's get everything that I sell or that I'm doing in business. What are the core top one or two things that make my business? That is what I need to focus on. That's who I am. All these other things are ancillary. And so, like, if you guys have heard of like the Pareto's principle, right? The 80-20, the Pareto's principle, 80-20 rule.
Okay.
So 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort.
Yeah.
So it was like last year, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna check the 80-20 rule in my business. And I started looking at the numbers, and sure as shit, it was 79-21.
Was it really?
79% of my income was coming from 21% of my
of the SKUs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was like, motherfucker, damn, it's true. And so trying to trim down and where I've gotten now is like once your business starts growing, you start getting stretched thin because you're inside the business and you're doing everything, and you're trying to like, I can do that, I can save money and do that. Well, I don't have to pay anyone $20 an hour to do that. But pretty soon you can't do it all.
Yeah.
And so stepping away, and that's another process of letting go, like letting go of product lines, letting go of responsibilities and handing them off to capable people. And not just that, but training those people, because you're not going to find the perfect employee. You're going to have to like onboard them and teach them a little bit for what you have going on, and then removing yourself from the business and working on your business, not inside of it, and creating, like what I'm doing now is like building systems in the business, so that, because it's like,
give me an example. What do you mean by a system?
Okay, a system is, how do we make a t-shirt? First, you get a design. Who do you get a design from? Well, let's get a design from an artist that we like on Instagram that we've chatted with on DM. Hit them up. Hey, we want you to do a design. Check our style out. And if something you like, let's work together. And we've had good success. We're going to do it more and more. We have guest artists.
Yep.
Because I do a lot of the art, but I also like to just see other people's art, because I get tired of my own stuff. I get sick of looking at my own designs. I really do.
Yep.
So I like to reach out and get new, fresh perspectives on like new looks on things. So you're like, oh, here's how you do it. You get an AI file. You get the design. I send it down to Ryan at Industry Threadworks. Hey, you want to make these t-shirts? What colors do you want? And I go, if I don't really know, I'm like, I don't know, what do you think? What does this match with? And like Ryan, he's so good down there at Industry. He's like, this looks good on like a red and a black, but the way the contrast works, it's not going to work like on another color. So
yeah. And he can tell you what colors patterns sell the most and which ones don't.
Yeah, totally.
Like, don't make a tan T-shirt.
Yeah. Right.
7 people will buy it
right.
over 6 years, but it's not a big deal.
And So they make the shirts, they come
Yep.
up, you create a product page on Shopify, take good product photos, back that up with lifestyle photography, get your Instagram thing ready, and then
Launch.
there's patterns to this, and they're repeatable. And if you're reinventing the wheel every time, you're spinning your wheels. So like things that are repeatable in your business, I've learned to write them down and create systems so that you can hand them to someone you hire and like, hey, here's the way this one system works, and let them work on that until they get it really nailed. And like, oh, I totally understand how we launch T-shirts now.
Yeah.
I can make the product page, do the product photography, hire someone. We actually have on retainer. Matt Lingo down in DC, who takes a lot of our lifestyle stuff, and Trevor, he's doing a ton of like the lifestyle work out there, doing all that. So,
Where do you see it in 5 years?
I would say we are definitely not in this building. If I could scale it, I would say we're probably 10x of where we are right now. So 10x meaning we're 10 times the yearly revenue that we're at right now.
Yep.
And there's a very solid systems in place and scalability, and our market just isn't military commando people. It's kind of like that market I was talking about earlier, where it's people that kind of like they like that sort of obsessed sort of like hardcore look with a sort of a military twist, but sort of with some humor to it. And we're patriotic, but we're not, like, of course I'm a patriot. I love America. There's no question.
It doesn't mean you have to get crazy with it.
Yeah, but my style isn't like the, giant American flag on the back that says, I'm going to crush your face if you don't love America. Like, that's just, I don't think that goes over well. It's just not my approach. It's not my personality.
Yeah.
And so, like, your business also has to be a little bit of a reflection of your personality to a point. But then another point too, where you start to create what sells, and every business does that at a point. And I'm not at that point quite yet because I still love to have keep the heart of what I want it to become. I still like to keep that within a certain corral it a little bit.
Yeah.
But
So we got to go backwards. So you got 1 year of skiing under your belt. And tryouts come up.
No, 2 years. I had 2 years.
You had skied for 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
Okay.
So I probably, we're talking, we got 220 days of just killing it.
And I don't know anything about ski patrol other than they're probably way better on the mountain than I am. And so you try out, or you put your application in. Let's talk about the application in and of itself. How did you separate yourself?
Okay, so just because I'm anti-office anything, I was like, everyone's going to turn in an 8.5 by 11 resume with some black letters on it about things they've done and all this, and that's great, and I know it definitely works and has a place, but I'm like, dude, I'm gonna stand out. So I went to this website. It was called I think it's called Pictochart or pictograph.com, and it's basically it's a visually appealing timeline of what you have. So there's colors, there's bubbles, graphs, arrows, right? And so it's an infographic, like an info chart, if people know what that is. So I was like, I'm going to do an info chart resume. And they didn't have one at the time. They didn't have one called resume. So I picked one that was like the closest to what I would think would be cool. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm going to do a bunch of cutting and pasting and dragging and make it longer too, right? So I'm like, oh, if you want to stand out from the pile, well, number one, start with the size that doesn't fit the pile.
2x.
Yeah. So we're like, so I make like this. I don't know. It was like 17 by 9.
It was like a scroll
on cardstock.
Yeah.
Right. And so like I made those, and so that right there are just gonna get you like, we gotta at least have a conversation with this person someone who would turn something like this in, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of worked, as far as getting a foot in the door. It's like standing out, be different, don't be like the crowd. Because if you're just plugging into what the rest of the crowd is doing, you're invisible, man.
What? So when you showed up for tryouts, how many people were there?
Oh man, I think it was like 60 something.
Yep.
Yeah, and they had like six spots or something like that. And it was like literally a guy with a clipboard. They would be like, okay, moguls. And then they would be like, next. And you would ski the moguls the best you could. And they would like write your score down. And like, it was a full tryout thing. I was like, this is sweet, man. This is like, this is like a legit, like for real, like tryout deal. And there was no way I was even close to being in the top 80% of the best skiers on the entire thing, right? But they're not looking for, on the patrols, they're not really necessarily they're looking for strong, capable skiers that they can work with.
And probably be taught.
Teachable.
Yep.
And work ethic. And so they do little tests, one of the tests they did, and I could see it, and from our background, like you learn how to learn, like I'm like, oh, we've been through selection processes, I know what's happening right now. So they had us all standing up on top of this avalanche problem, where they're like, okay, here's the scenario, we got 2 people buried down here, and we all had packs on with, shovel and probe in our packs. Like, everyone had the same gear. No one didn't have anything. And they're like, so go ahead and start. And I'm like, well, what they're looking for right now is initiative. Yeah. So then I had known the basics of, like, how to do, like, I'd been through a level 1, an ARI level 1 avalanche rescue. I had that course knocked out. And there were a lot of people that had higher than I did, but they didn't have the initiative to, like, lean forward and, like, make something happen. Everyone was, like, waiting to be told, like, waiting for someone else, right? Like waiting for someone else to come and do it. So me and, like, a couple other people just poured right into the avalanche problem. We coordinated as a team, like, okay, get your shovel and probe ready. I got a signal, ski down to as soon as you got a signal, skied right down to it, and then went through our probing procedures, hit it, started digging, and there were still people standing there wondering what happened. So
probably not the next day, because those people were hopefully gone.
Yeah, I don't think any of them made it.
Yeah.
So they're like, the patrol is looking for who's gonna realize what the situation is, who's gonna react, who's gonna go, at least try. Yeah. You don't have to be perfect, but at least, like, lean forward, like, take initiative, and don't be afraid to stick your neck out there in front of a bunch of people at a tryout and give it your best shot and do the best you can, and create an immediate small team with people you've never met before that know the basic same level of avalanche knowledge, and create a team and make teamwork happen and kind of make it happen. And I've seen that everywhere that I've ever been, where there's people that they're always waiting on the walls. They're kind of like the wallflowers. They're waiting for someone else to do it because they don't want to make the mistake. They don't want to be exposed. And they're a little bit afraid to leave their comfort zone, and they're comfortable being on the wall. They're not comfortable stepping forward, going, I've got the basics of the knowledge to go after this. Who else has it? Maybe someone else will step forward that knows more than I am, and you're the fucking team leader. But I'm a great digger, and I'm great at probe, and, like, I'm in shape, and I can do this all fucking day long. And so you immediately find your spot, put yourself out there, and go for it.
Yeah. How was your first year on ski patrol?
Big learning curve, yeah. Like going on wrecks and just seeing people hurt with broke legs and stuff like that.
What was the first call you ever went up to?
My buddy who was on ski patrol. My buddy's dad.
Oh God.
He was on ski. My buddy was on ski patrol. His dad got hurt, and I can't remember if it was a hip or a femur, but he had got hurt, and I was driving the toboggan and went down there, and it was my first toboggan ride, and. Toboggan's like this giant sled. People don't know it's got these big handles that come out front, so you ski in front of it. Yep. And the toboggan's long enough to put, a person can lay down flat, and it's a big sled. So I pull up next to my buddy's dad, and he's like, "Dad, this is Sean." And then he's, of course, he to ease his dad, he's like, "He was a former Navy SEAL." And I'm like, "Man, come on, why does it always go back to that? Fuck, God, we can't get rid of it. You know what I mean?" And I hauled him down, but we didn't tell him it was his first time until we got to the bottom. I was like, "Hey, that was awesome." And he's like, "Dad, that was the first time he's ever taken anyone down the mountain on a toboggan." His dad's like, "What? Well, you did great, thanks." It was all good, but yeah, but it felt really good to get back on a team again. Yeah, and have a mission where you get to help people, because it feels good. Like, because you're up on the hill and someone, they fractured their femur and they're in an insane amount of pain, and it for a lot of people up there, it's like you see a lot of people every day while you're at work on what could be the worst day of their life. And you show up right there on the worst day of their life, and you help them. And it feels good. It doesn't, ski patrol pay anything. It doesn't pay fucking shit. It costs money to fucking do that job. And so, like, if anyone's like, how much do they pay you? I'm like, they don't pay me anything. I pay with my time, because if I were to take that same time I do that and I put it into this business, the business would accelerate. Yep. But I don't want to it's like that balance, right? You find you have time, and then you're going to get money. And if you can align a shitload of money and you get a shitload of time, that's great. You can get there after a lot of years of hard work, but you're going to give away a lot of time to get money. And I feel like after doing what we've done, and we talked about this on the, we were heli skiing yesterday, I think a little bit. Not all of these grinded out hustle guys you see on the internet they've never seen any real shit in life, man. Like they've never seen people get killed. They've never killed people or seen their friends die and like had and experienced a tremendous amount of fucking loss to realize that you're not getting your fucking time back, dude. You can hustle until you're 70. Good luck. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to hustle to a degree, but I'm going to balance it out and spending time with people I love,
Well, it recalibrates your perspective.
Totally. And part of the battle there is you're like, well, I could hustle more. I could just give up more of my time so that I can get more money later. But then when I have more money, then I'm just probably going to go do what I'm doing now anyway. Like if I literally had $10 million in the bank, I would be on ski patrol. I would. I'm not doing it because it doesn't pay me money. I'm doing it because I want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the best job you could ever have.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love it. And everybody's goal is different, and no one's path. I will never ever sit down and go, what you should do is get out and go to the mountains and start skiing and go on ski patrol, because very few people that's what they want to do.
Yeah,
but you definitely finding something that you want to do really bad. It could be business, and that's great. But I don't know. Your time's important. Don't grind your life to dust.
Perfect ending ever. Cheers, homie.